Why is it that people on the fringe right are more interested in the Epstein files?
And then right before his trial, he dies. I mean, Chris, let's be honest. If we're talking about the mafia and we're talking about a guy that had information on all of these big, powerful people and he gets whacked, does not a part of your brain? And Kirk or Johnson or Rogan or whoever, or me or anybody who's looking at this, and people on the left and the fringe left also has some conspiracies. One of them was that Donald Trump was an agent of Russia. And by the fringe left, I mean every media organization, including the one you used to work for, every day was Russiagate. So to me, it's like, don't you look at the Epstein thing and for a minute say to yourself, yes, it is possible that this guy who is involved in potentially blackmailing people, but certainly involved in human trafficking and connected to all these wealthy, powerful people, gets whacked before he can say any of their names?
Chris Cuomo, he interviewed Tim Dillon, and it went just about as well as you would expect it to go. Chris Cuomo seemingly found it very confusing. As JD Vance says, yeah, that's weird. Confusing as to why so many people are focused on Jeffrey Epstein and why so many people think that the official story with Jeffrey Epstein maybe doesn't add up. And he got absolutely humiliated by Tim Dillon in comedic fashion.
Why is it that people on the fringe right seem to engage in conspiracies more? Is it a coincidence that Benny Johnson and Charlie Kirk are more interested in the Epstein files? Is it a coincidence?
Benny Johnson is far right now. Benny Johnson and Charlie Kirk are far right. What does that make me? That makes me like Chris Cuomo would probably call me Pol Pot. Actually, if you want to know what Chris Cuomo called me, he said that I'm one of the leading voices of the next generation of political thinkers in the United States. I put that one in my intro video if you haven't seen it. That was one of the funniest clips of all time. That made the Zionists, the pro-Ukraine people, that made them lose their minds. I've never seen that many people lose my minds. When Chris Cuomo interviewed me and he's like, Jackson, it's great to sit down with one of the, greatest minds of the next generation. I'm like, what are you saying right now? Do you know what you're opening yourself up to? Needless to say, my relationship with Chris Cuomo, my friendship, it was short-lived. It was short-lived. Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
That Rogan was, talking so much about Epstein killing himself versus being murdered. Why do we hear more of that on the right?
I think there's people on the fringe left, if you remember, and I listen, I think Epstein probably was murdered. I mean, I don't think
based on what?
Well, based on the idea that the cameras went out and the guards fell asleep and he had information on some of those most powerful people in the world, and his best friend, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, the Seymour Hersh, wrote a book alleging that he was an agent of the Mossad, and they had what clearly seems like a honeypot operation, and that all of these politicians were on his jet. Like it feels like, again, just from an outsider's point of view, he got a sweetheart deal for the first time he was accused and convicted.
This is my favorite part. Like, it starts setting in for Tim Dillon right here. He's like, wait, what are we talking about? What do we mean? Why are we still talking about Epstein? And you hear him just like question the whole reality of this conversation. And he's like, what are we? Of course we're still talking about Epstein. He goes into overdrive here. It's beautiful.
Of being inappropriate with a minor. And I don't know the exact terminology. He did a lot more than be inappropriate with a minor. But you have this intriguing, weird figure who's connected to all of these very powerful people and has an island where people are going to meet up with underage women. And all of these people are coming out and testifying to that effect. And then right before his trial, he dies. I mean, Chris, let's be honest. If we're talking about the mafia and we're talking about a guy that had information on all of these big, powerful people and he gets whacked, does not a part of your brain? And Kirk or Johnson or Rogan or whoever, or me or anybody who's looking at this, and people on the left and the fringe left also has some conspiracies. One of them was that Donald Trump was an agent of Russia. And by the fringe left, I mean every media organization, including the one you used to work for, every day was Russiagate. So to me, it's like, don't you look at the Epstein thing and for a minute say to yourself, yes, it is possible that this guy who is involved in potentially blackmailing people, but certainly involved in human trafficking and connected to all these wealthy, powerful people, gets whacked before he can say any of their names?
Yes. I think it's very...
Yes. It appears as though I'm as retarded as you have exposed me to be. Yes, I guess. You got a point there. You got a little point there. Like, what are we doing? It's almost 2026, and we're still trying to silence people talking about Epstein. What are we doing? It's the one thing that the establishment Democrats seem to agree with Trump on, though. It's like, stop talking about Epstein. Stop talking about Epstein. Why is that? Why could that be? Why are all these pro-Israel establishment, Democrats okay to critique Trump? Well, critique Trump on this, then the other, 99% of issues. But when it comes to this, it's like, you know what? Trump has a point. Maybe it is all a hoax. Maybe this is all fake. Michael Tracy says we should stop, talking about it. Michael Tracy says that Virginia Giuffre is a bona fide liar. Michael Tracy says, it's all a sham. This really is a hoax. But then again, Michael Tracy kind of looks like a guy who, if he had that much money, he'd probably also be on the Epstein Island. Michael Tracy, known for his fence sitting on every issue so much that the fence is stuck halfway up his lower intestine. Michael Tracy says that this is all fake as well. Genius take. Oh, everyone must just be lying, everyone must. I think Michael Tracy is just like, he's so upset. I mean, if you look at a photo of have you guys seen, who I'm talking about, right? Michael Tracy, the quote unquote journalist. I personally believe the reason why Michael Tracy wants the Epstein story to be all fake and a hoax and whatnot is because he has post-traumatic fear of missing out on the Epstein Island. I mean, look at this guy. I think that he's just so distraught over the fact that he was never invited to the Epstein Island that he has to say, well, this must be fake. It can't be true. Why was I not invited? I think that's where we're at now. Sorry for the jump scare by showing Michael Tracy's face, by the way, and his exposed legs.